dream too much. I tell myself that I can't stop. We could see clearly now. We could see clearly now. That I can't stop. We could see clearly now. We could see clearly now. We could see clearly now. Clearly now. Clearly now. We could see clearly now. We could see clearly now. We could see clearly now. I smoke too much. I drink too much. I tell myself that I can't stop. We could see clearly now. 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 Clearly now. Clearly now. We could see clearly now. We could see clearly now. We could see clearly now. That I can't stop. We could see clearly now. We could see clearly now. I can't stop. We could see clearly now. We could see clearly now.
Hello, and welcome to a very special stream of Boomeadow builds. I am starting late today. Unfortunately, my job has meant that I've been working very late nights, so it has pushed out this stream today a little bit. But hopefully that will all be corrected shortly. Anyway, so we have been building the world maps of Feyawyr, which is my Feywild, and Feyawyr, which is my material plane, and Nethreg, which is my hells. And now that the world maps are finished, we have been jumping in. Thank you, Zephyr. We have been jumping in to start what is essentially the town builds. Finally! Yes, the town builds. We are actually starting building the city of Corkwood in the Spring Court. Yes, we are starting in the Spring Court, which, for those who don't know, my Feywild, well, this is where I'm going to be able to get to talk a little bit more in depth about how my Feywild works and things like this. So I'm very, very excited. But yes, we did start building Corkwood, and as people have seen, this is just even the initial layout of these kind of areas is the laborious task of making it look aesthetically pretty and pleasing. But Corkwood, if I look at just double checking my notes, Corkwood is part of the Spring Court. But more specifically, there are 3 minor courts that come under that bracket of the Spring Court. And Corkwood is in the Court of Lightning. So I do base my Feywild on the cardinal magic compass. So the Spring Court is allied with the element of air, and the Spring Court is under the rule of Durridge the Green Lord, the Rising King. So the East and the West Court, so the Spring and the Autumnal Courts, will be ruled over by the Fey Kings, and the Summer and Winter Courts are ruled over by the Fey Queens. So yes, but we've been working on Corkwood and all of the little bits and pieces that entails, basically. So we've just been finishing off these, and then we can get started on the town proper. But how are you today, Zephyr? This is one of these. Hello, Tide Runner. Oh, God. I'm on the big screen now. Well, I'm glad you're at least relaxing. That's a nice thing to be doing. It is a bit of a later start to my stream today. Oh, that's nice. I will be reaching out to our applicants today of those I will be asking for interviews. And also letting the people know who were not successful as well. Just because that is something that I do like to do. I do like to let them know, even if they aren't successful, but just because I think it's polite. The waves should all be on level 2. Yeah, which I know, isn't the norm in today's civilization and things like this, because obviously you're not going to necessarily find out if you didn't get a job or something like that. But because it's a social situation, I think for me personally, the only polite thing to do is actually let people know if they haven't made it through for whatever reason. I obviously don't give reasons, like I don't want to pick people apart or anything like that, but it is just letting them know because I think it's polite. There we go. So what I'm actually doing here is just hiding the black line coastline. You've been moving furniture all morning. Nice. I've been sleeping. And I have only just recently actually just woken up. What is this? Why is this like this? That shouldn't look like that. Not me being suspicious of what happened here. See, my thing is, I don't remember if I myself deleted this. The shale worm. Oh god, you sent me something? If I sound like I'm panicking because I don't recall what you are talking about, that is correct, yes. I don't remember what you're talking about. And I apologize. Okay. I will also say Hello, Seagent! How are you? Well, I don't know. The obligatory beach episode, I honestly don't know how long the players are going to end up being in. I honestly don't know how long that the... I didn't actually have a look at that daily adventure prompt yet, Tide Runner, but I will have to have a look at it. And yeah, I'm great. Yeah, I don't know how long the party is going to be in Corkwood for. So, and it is wonderful having you here, Zagent, because I do recognise that you are indeed one of the people who actually applied to the game. So welcome to this chaotic little world building space. You get to hear all about my squirrel-brained ideas. No, I do try and keep it pretty because a couple of the existing players who are going to be in the campaign do watch these streams as well. I try to keep it pretty spoiler-free for them. But I'm also aware that the new players that I will have coming in will have that slight disadvantage of not knowing what in the heck is going on. So this is basically my place where I get to talk about things like world building, the lore and things like this. So those who are not familiar with the world can kind of understand exactly what is going on. There are some core concepts and things like that I do talk about in terms of how I run things and stuff like that. So, oh, Tide Runner, you know that is a fallacy because I've talked for months that you are indeed a player in the game. Yes, I do try and keep it in terms of what is going to be going on in the story, kind of based in essentially the state of the world, the world lore itself. Just because this world lore is now 4 campaigns old, and I obviously want, well, it is the place where I get to talk about it, basically, because, you know, the players won't always explore the world lore. And so this is kind of the place where I get to talk about that, and yeah. Just because it is... So the campaign world itself, the world build itself, is 6 years in the making. We have played, and I say we, it's I and various other players I've had have played in this world over the last 6 years. Oh yeah, no, you're not going to discover anything like that. No. This is just me talking about mostly my style as the DM. Also, you know, just allowing people to get a feel for my personality too. Because you might have applied for the campaign and realised, yeah, exactly. But yeah, this is basically the place where, one, I build the maps. I build the maps. I talk about world lore. I talk about things that I do as a DM, DM rules, my stances on things. You know, just as a kind of way of, and you know, also just in general being an advocate for this idea and concept that there's no such thing as bad D&D, just incompatibility. Like, not every table is going to be compatible for every player and things like this, and that's okay. So your ideas are perfect. That is questionable, I will say, Zephyr. I will say that some of your ideas are chaotic and amazing, and I think we can definitely agree that not every decision that my players make in game is always the smartest choice, but that's okay too, because we love a good little bit of chaos. Big core concepts in my world are predominantly things like balance. I usually do big world kind of heroic style campaigns, but that being said, you don't have to be a hero in my campaign. I don't ever expect any of my players to play a heroic character if they don't want to. The only kind of real alignment, so I do run on the alignment systems that the alignment system in terms of it is a very loose alignment system. The only alignment that I don't really kind of allow in my player parties is obviously chaotic evil, just because they are very hard to pull off right, but also they end up being very selfish characters and driven by their own decisions. The only thing I do kind of do ask of my players is, I don't care what alignment overall you want to make your character. It's more the fact of, hey, look, it is not my fault that you were not aware of old mining ideas. And the fact that they did indeed used to... Their idea of a safe fireproof location was literally behind a giant lead door. That's it. But there was still gunpowder and stuff everywhere. Yeah, so the idea is that I don't care what alignment you want to be. You just need to have a common goal with the party, basically. That means you can work with them, essentially. Yeah, you have to be able to work with the party, otherwise it's just not going to work. I do very much kind of run on the rule of cool, insofar as I do turn around and allow my players within reason to attempt anything. Yeah, exactly. And yeah, it is. I've also been very open and honest that I am absolutely 100% okay with the idea that your character doesn't want to be a hero, because the reality is heroes, the people who are heroes, for the common folk that lauds them as heroes, they're the people that benefit from you guys being heroes. But the reality is, for the heroes, you became heroes, or you became who you are because of trauma. It's the fact of stuff happened in your character's life that led them to this point. And not all of that stuff is going to be good. I don't mind if you want a super sad backstory. I don't mind what you want to do with that. Like, that is up to you. That is your character. I don't care if you want to destroy the world, as long as you guys are united in that goal of that is what you want to do, kind of thing. And it is okay to not want to be a hero, but the idea and concept then is, you know, you end up doing something because somebody has to. And I have had a player once turn around to me and go, I don't want to be a hero. Why would I want to be a hero? And why would I want to, you know, intervene and step in and save the world? And my answer to that was because your character lives in it, and your character, even if you're not particularly invested in the world, your character is. Your character has reason to, you know, not want the place where they live to be destroyed. This particular campaign, the world itself is not open to being destroyed, but the actual concept of what has happened in the world has changed. The landscape of the world. Yes, has changed the landscape of the world. And because of that, this is why there is the parallel planar scape of the Feyawyr, the material plane, and the Hells. Yeah, but the problem is, at the end of the day, it's still a game, and your characters are the focus of that game. So even if you don't end up doing what is the main plot, because obviously I like being driven by my players to explore the stories they want to tell. And so if they don't want to follow the main plot, I'm okay with that, but they need to also talk to me about that. You know, all of the people that play in my game, we're all grown-ass adults. We all have lives, we all have kids, we all have, you know, or we have, you know, adult things to take care of. So this is something we do for fun. So if you're not enjoying something and, you know, you want it, you know, you want to do something else as a party, I'm happy to change the concept of what the story is, because there are always going to be stories that are going to be told within the scope of the world. Yeah, the chaotic guy still needs friends. The problem with chaotic people with chaotic evil is allies is a very hard thing. Having friends as well Because usually chaotic evil means that they will do anything and sell out anyone. And in my opinion, the chaotic guy is one of the hardest people to redeem. And to quote another DM that, you know, I talk to a lot about this. Yeah, but even then, the Joker sold out Harley. The only reason Harley kept coming back is because of their own toxic issues. But it is the fact that eventually, and that's the problem. And with being an evil character, one thing that I have had a discussion with in the past with other DMs is the biggest problem with playing an evil character, especially a chaotic evil character, is most people don't want to be seen as the villain. And so even if they are playing a bad guy character, they will eventually try to redeem themselves. Because no one wants to be seen as the bad guy. And the reality is, and this is why my campaigns end up being very morally grey in the end, because the reality is history is told by the victors. So of course they see themselves as the heroes of their story. And that's not always the truth. I usually also, especially if my bad guys are humanoid in their kind of creation, or at least they have sentience and awareness, they are usually multifaceted. They're not just, well, I'm going to do this bad thing because I want to do the bad thing. They're usually, they have motivations for why they're doing things. Does that mean the characters are going to still see them as bad people? Yes. But at least you understand that usually my bad guys are going to have reasons for doing the things that they do. And they are driven by goals and motivations, just like the player characters. And I do enjoy that fact that sometimes the characters have to stand back and go, hang on, are we the bad guys? There might be situations where your minds won't be changed. You will still decide that you have to do what you have to do to stop the bad guys because the greater good or whatever. The one thing I will say, because this isn't spoilery, this is going to be common knowledge, but in this particular game we're going to see the rise of a lot of tyrannical paladin orders. We are going to... that they see themselves as very lawful good. You know, but they are reinstating order in a world of chaos. You know, considering one of their deities is legitimately called the Chaos Maiden. You know, and anybody that's played with the Chaos Maiden knows that she is indeed chaotic. So, hi evil one. How are you? Yes, the Chaos Maiden. We love the Chaos Maiden. She is the goddess of chaos and love. Because love is chaotic. And, you know, not always good. So... and these are things that kind of I like exploring. But yes, we're going to see the rise of tyrannical paladin orders. Religion in and of itself, we are going to see the fact that the religious factions are, they are diminished because of the events that led to this situation. So I have talked about a situation known as the Merge before. And the Merge is essentially the events of the previous campaign, which we saw the rise of the Necronomicon as an entity known as the Titan King. He was an eldritch deity, was trying to return to this world. And yes, he was trying to return to this world. And in doing so, he was trying to bring back his own... He believed it was his right to rule as the gods and take over after the gods of the first era. But of course, in the Titan War that followed, it was obviously not to be. What are they called? Sorry, I'm just trying to think of something. So when the Necronomicon came into play in the third era of the world, which was the previous campaign, it had a lot of eldritch magic tied into it. And because of this eldritch magic, it meant that the world itself changed and reality itself was changed. And so the three central planes of existence, the ethereal plane, the Feywild, the material plane, and the hells, they were all pulled onto the same planar space. And so because they were all pulled onto the same planar space, we now have the three internal planes that are all existing overlapped over each other, basically. They inhabit their own space, kind of in their own like little pocket plane, but they are essentially all existing in the same planar space. They are all able to be traveled to by forms of certain magics. There are certain people that are going to be able to do it. Generally, if you are going to be a magic caster, you are somebody who can jump between these planes of existence. But you can only jump through at certain points, and this is where the webs come into it. It is a concept from a book series that I really, really enjoy. And yes, so there are going to be places that are tied together, and they are going to be places of significance. And these are going to be policed. We are starting in the Feywild because it is inherently the most free of all the three realms. Because the material plane is being ruled over by what we have been called, the tyrannical witch queens. Yes, they are the witch queens. They are essentially the people who took over the predominating rulership of... They took over the predominating rulership after the LUS, or the Loriadoran Unitary State fell, the LUS, because they were essentially being controlled by evil, dark aliens who were body-snatching people. They had, for centuries, eugenically created the perfect host, and they were ruling the government, and they were basically set on bringing back the Titan King, which would have been bad, basically. So, yeah, I wanted that to kind of come into play. And so the Witch Queens are the ones who have essentially taken over after that. I like this, but I think I'm going to continue with this. But yeah, so the Witch Queens are in control of Anthalamir, the material plane, and they are the ones dictating. So the merge in the grand scale of things, so the world is about 60,000 years old, or at least their recorded history is 60,000 years old. The merge itself only happened about 1,000 years ago. So there are going to be people who, for example, the old player characters. There are going to be some that are still kicking around purely because of their role as heroes, essentially. Because, for example, one of them, Farouk, was a true druid. So he is very much clearly still in play, very much still clearly alive. However, his prominence in the world is going to be heavily dictated by, obviously, the play of the game. So, but yeah, he is going to be an entity, and obviously I do have to get him right because, well, the person who played him is potentially going to interact with him. And I like to treat all of my player characters. Okay, Zephyr not so much. I mean, Zephyr's legacy in terms of Vedetta's legacy may still be around. However, probably not, because the part of the world that Vedetta, which was Zephyr's character, belonged to, was destroyed by a meteor that led to the rise of the unitary state, that led to the situation in the Hells being what it is, and a meteor hit and destroyed the world as they knew it at the time. And it is only through the actions of the ascendant gods that were once known as the Realm Witches that led to the landmass, which is now Avani, as we have seen it, which is the material plane, which is this world here. This world only exists because the Realm Witches basically created this landmass as a place for people to go after the previous part of the world, the previous landmass of the world known as Azuria, was destroyed. Which meant that the world did grow exponentially, because all that is left of what was the place known as Azuria is in the bottom right hand side there. You see all these little islands there. That is now known as the Ascendant Islands, the floating islands. That's all that's left of that world that they came from. And because of the merge, this is why these maps actually have similarities across the board. Like the floating islands exist in all forms of this map and things like this. The merge actually took on elements from each of the planes but forced it to kind of all look similar. So yeah. But yes, Tidrunner's character, previous character, Farouk, does still exist in the world. Which is fun for me. That makes me excited. So I'm really excited that he still exists in the world. And yes, he is a true druid. Well, that's exactly it. That is 100%. And that is something that one of the other players, Valcor, can probably attest to, because Valcor is notoriously bad for writing me backstories where everyone in his character's life is dead. Which, as we know, until there's a body, nothing is confirmed. I think I'm going to need to build these big and then shrink them. I could build these maps at a higher resolution, but I don't know if that's going to crash everything. Well, that is exactly true. Resurrection can be a thing. True resurrection. You just need the power to be able to do it. And so that is always entirely a possibility within my world, that yes, characters could be resurrected. Yeah. so I'm excited to see essentially what the players. I have 4 players that have played in previous campaigns, and so the reason I'm advertising is because I want to bring 2 more new players in, and what I'm thinking of doing is pairing everybody up with another person that they can essentially put into their backstory, so they already know somebody in the group, and it's up to you guys to figure out how they. Thank you for the save. And it's up to those pairs to figure out how they know each other, how they met, that kind of stuff. But it means that the 2 players who are coming into the world who have never actually been part of the world are also being paired with somebody who knows how the world operates, who knows the history of the world, who knows the lore. Hell is one of those places where the living and the dead simultaneously exist together. There are places within hell that is primarily dead landscapes, where usually the living don't really go there. But my helves is kind of a combination of your classic Judeo-Christian kind of hells, so demons, devils, places of torment and things like that, and also being kind of like the Greek underworld as well. So not inherently hell. It is also of the 3 planes the most lawful because of the events that happened in the scope of the story, with the Aasimar and things like that. It means that it is the most lawful plane. It is the most lawful plane, and obviously this is. Yeah, it's the most lawful plane. It is where the Aasimar are from now, because most of the Aasimar in the world, their bloodlines have all been tainted by being connected to the Titan King and the aliens that basically ruled the world for close to 8,000 years. And no one knew, and it wasn't until the events of the Necronomicon happened that they actually found that out. So and there were people from different parts of the world. So Farouk's people were from the Ascendant Islands. Farouk's people are from the Ascendant Islands. They essentially were the last bastions that knew of the old ways. They knew of the world that the Ascendant gods came from, the realm witches, because that part of the world at the time had been created by the elemental draconic gods. And the reason the realm witches came into play was because they had essentially been created by the elemental draconic gods to basically save the gods from their own destruction. So these are all like little things that I end up being explored in my world. Like the gods themselves, I run them very similar to the American gods kind of principle, insofar as belief. They require belief to exist, which is where a portion of this campaign is going to come from, which I won't go too much into it, but it has led me to look into things like fantasy metaphysical theories. So it's fun for that. So that was a thing. Yeah. I need... these ones. to cast a shadow. Yes. I like that. I needed it to cast a shadow because... yes, I needed it to cast a shadow because it's going to be a higher wall. What I'm building here are these steps down to these docks, basically. Yeah, Zejan, it's, as I said, it's been 6 years. So the campaigns themselves started in the what is now known as the second era of the world. So yeah, it started in the second era of the world, and because of that, the first campaign that was played was The Rise of the Realm Witches, and that explored their lore, their mythology, why they existed, who they were. They were always destined to be gods, kind of thing, or, well, as they were told at the time by the entities involved, they essentially had a small fragment of the draconic god's powers which they represented, and they could decide if they destroyed the gods or helped them. But the gods themselves couldn't actually interfere. And they just had to kind of accept that if these entities that they had created, these people that they had created, if they wanted to destroy the gods, they could do so. And they were not allowed to be interfered. And a part of this rule actually comes from what is now known as the first era of the world, which I actually have a group playing through that first era currently on my Tuesday night games, that are instilling these rules that essentially the events of that campaign are leading to the rule that the gods aren't allowed to interfere in the material plane. Not overtly anymore. They're not allowed to treat it like a game. And all of those events are legitimately because of the actions of the previous party. Because that particular game, they are actually playing in a game of Zorvental. They are beholden to the gods. They are dealing with exarchs. They are doing all of that kind of stuff. And there are player characters within that world who are not happy with the gods' influence over the world, the way that they're treating the world and the people that live within it. And so, yeah, they are fighting back. They are basically going up against the Empyrean gods. So these are like the Titan gods that preceded the Draconic gods. And they're going up against these Empyrean gods essentially to... At this stage in time, the agreed consensus from the party is that they just want to stop the gods from interfering in the material plane and controlling people from the shadows. And so because of these actions, it has meant that the gods aren't allowed to interfere. They're, so the fact that the realm witches even kind of exist now is because of God's interference. But they were basically expressly told what would happen if they did. And that was legitimately the fact that they would be giving a group of people the power to destroy them. But it's not like they were keeping it a secret, so... But yeah, so much of this world has been built from has been built from player ex-player, old player, all that kind of stuff. All of this stuff has been their creation. I think I need to put in a building just to give myself a scope of what sizing I'm looking at here. Because I don't really use these isometric worlds. Like, I like the look of them. It's part of the reason why I've set the games so far apart in time. So while their immediate effects don't affect, basically, there are some consistent standards which kind of are hitting across the board kind of thing, but I still want them to be far enough apart that the games are played independently, and things that players do in one game aren't going to affect another part of the world's gameplay. Yeah, I didn't want them to be so close together that, for example, so basically between the first era of the game that's being played out and the fourth era of the game, there is about 60,000 years between them. And so a lot of the stuff that would have happened in the first era, first of all, they're playing Zorvental, and the one rule that is in place with Zorvental is, unless you're playing in the game of Zorvental, people aren't supposed to know that this game exists. So, yeah, people aren't supposed to know this game exists. So most of what's happening in the Zorvental game should be a secret. Yes, most of the game of Zorvental should be a secret, and so the ramifications of what happened in those games aren't necessarily going to come into play or affect the decisions of the fourth era game. Like I said, I want it to be completely independent so that the players of both games don't feel like they have to make decisions based on what another game has done. Well, time travel crossover. There is always the possibility of time travel within my world as well. There are places where you can travel through time. And the first era world, so the Tuesday game, they've actually gone 5 years in the past when we finished up for the year, because I do usually take roughly 2 months off around December, January, because just allowing for people to do life stuff. We did leave it on the bombshell that yes, that particular party is 5 years in the past. 6,005 years in the past. Yeah. But yeah, I've never said, I would never say that time travel is not possible. The difficult part is obviously, I have to play pretty loose with how time travel works within my world in terms of what you can do. But I generally play it that if your character doesn't remember something happening, then chances are it didn't happen, basically. If you don't remember it happening, then it didn't happen, because I'm not retconning everyone's memory. Yeah. I have had storylines where characters have come back from the past. We have had entities from the past. So, like in the previous campaign, we saw the ascendant gods, as they're known, interact with the people from that particular timeline, because they are still prevalent in the world. They're the gods of the world and things like that. The biggest key thing with that game, though, is, they had crossing over things. But to kind of circumvent that this time around, what I'm actually kind of doing with it is, because of the effects of the merge, the world itself is no longer properly connected to the celestial plane either. And so because of that, what we are going to see is we are actually going to see the fact that if somebody is going to be playing a cleric or something like this, I'm not going to be restricting their power or anything, but the player who is playing said cleric needs to be aware that essentially you are, when you do magic that does connect to the divine, because it is so rare, because the connection to the gods is almost severed, you are essentially seen as performing miracles. Vedetta, yes. Vedetta is a paladin. Billy Bob does exist still. Billy Bob is... Did we agree that Billy Bob, Bill Bobby Cletus IV is almost a cyborg at this point, after spending 1,000 years vaguely wandering through different planes of existence after he was banished, kind of thing? He ended up walking through various planes of existence. He walked through Sigil, the City of Doors. He ended up spending time in Mechanis. Vedetta is indeed a paladin. And the other thing about my religious kind of characters as well is, and this is partially because I have a particular frustration with players who end up playing their paladins as what I term, they turn around and say that they're playing them lawful good, but then they end up playing them lawful stupid, i.e. betraying their party because my character's good. No, you're being lawful evil. Yeah. My paladins, you don't have to be religious. It is your belief in a concept, essentially, what makes you essentially a paladin. Because the people who inherently believe in some kind of divinity, or at least the god's divinity, is a cleric. Whereas a paladin just has really strong faith in whatever it is that they have faith in. Vedetta's oath is to her brother and her family ideals. Yeah. The fact that your family has weird stuff going on with their bloodline is notwithstanding. But having that strong faith in your family. Yeah, strong self-belief and assurance. Exactly. And even my we are, like I said, we're going to see the rise in tyrannical paladin orders, but even my religious people, I don't like playing religious people in terms of infinitely good. Yeah, the twins are cool. They have, so the twins, Vedetta and Vincenzo, one is an Asimar, one is a tiefling. They have managed to make friends with a tabaxi, who is essentially just this ordinary dude who just, his parents are merchants, he wants to be a toy maker kind of thing, and he's ended up becoming a gunsmith. They're also with a divine assassin, basically an assassin who was raised by an assassin order to essentially be the angels of death for the fate goddess. And for better or worse, they're finding out what that means, which is why he's kind of angry, because he ended up getting banished. Yes, he ended up getting banished because he broke the rules of his clan. Yeah, he ended up breaking the rules of his clan for his own reasons, because in retrospect what they've discovered is he's really young. They have also met a young tiefling boy who they've found out is not all that he seems. It turns out that he is actually a 30-year-old man who was an exarch to the goddess of fate, who is the exarch to the goddess of fate, but through his own actions he gave up his adulthood and his power to protect his sister, meaning he's having to learn some hard lessons about what it means to be good. Very much am I the bad guy kind of situations. Yeah, Snitch is like 20 years old right now, but he's actually like 30 or so. The way I do tend to play my elves as well is they grow at the same rate as all of the other humans and things like this, most of those races. They all kind of mature at the same rate, purely because, and then obviously their aging slows down. And I do this purely because I don't want to deal with the connotations and ramifications of having one character who is infinitely younger than the rest of the party. And the way that I rule it is because elves are a long-lived race. Within their culture, they're deemed as children. But when they venture out into the outside world, they are seen as grown adults. And so the only thing that kind of dictates then how they are treated is obviously how much time they spend in the outside world. Yeah, exactly. And obviously, because of this, I think I spoke about this a little bit last time. Because of this, I am actually, I do have a very broad, I do have a very broad list of playable species dependent for what region and realm and plane you're from and things like this, because I do believe in ability score modifiers and things like this for my characters, because there are regional differences, there are species differences, and I wanted that to kind of be reflected, which is why, for example, and I think I discussed this last stream. This is why I'm not allowing human variant from a storytelling perspective, because whoever gets into the game will actually get to see these lists. But there are 3 lists with humans from Hell, the Material Plane, and Feyawyr, and they are all different. They all have different ability score modifiers. They all have different abilities depending on where they're from. They have the technical differences. It's also never sat quite right with me, the fact that humans are essentially dictated as the Swiss Army knives. Yeah, it's very long. It's never really sat right with me that humans are essentially the Swiss Army knives of the world. Exactly, because I'm allowing a lot of custom or homebrewed classes and species and subspecies and subclasses and things like this, that I don't want anyone who is coming into the game to be limited, especially when the players who are already existing in the game, at least 2 of the players, I vaguely know what they're doing, and Tide Runner isn't playing a standard class, and Valcor is not playing a standard class or race, subclass or race. So, you know, some of the species that I've got, you know, it's everything from, oh, you want to play an Aarakocra, but you want to be like a hummingbird? You want to be a small Aarakocra? Go for it. If you want to be a bearkin and play like a koala bear, go for it. If you want to, you know, I don't know. See, I have homebrew with limitations, and it's the limitations that I've already set. And all my homebrew and all of these classes, subclasses, subspecies, yada, 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 do come under the caveat of, because they've never been play tested by me or, you know, anything like that, we can tweak them as we go. Half elf, half orc, tiefling, asthma. You know what? That would probably be entirely impossible within the world. But, you know, if you want to go into your family's genealogy that deep, go for it. I believe Tide Runner's character is a Simic hybrid Eladrin by bloodline, even if he does present as a Simic hybrid. And obviously I do also, so the big thing with these kind of things as well is, for example, I'm just trying to think of what I'm trying to say here. So for example, all of this kind of stuff is coming into play. Yeah. How far you go into your backstory is up to you. I do have a very basic questionnaire, not the some 40 pages that I think Evil One jokes that I made him sit through. But it is a couple of questions just on the scope of, like, getting to know your character a bit better, getting to understand who your character is, getting to explore that and explore where your character is from, why your character does what they do, who they were raised by, their motivations. Are they motivated by gold? Are they motivated by magic? Are they motivated by a prophecy? Which, of course, all of those things do require talking to the DM to figure out. Basically, I just want my players to be able to play a cool game where they feel like their actions matter, where they get to do something really cool and fun and things like this. Yeah, I just want my players to be able to do something cool, something fun. Because that's important to me because, as I said, as long as you come into my game, I don't know if I've made dwarfs available, but I know that the Mull are available, so a half human, half dwarf. But I don't think I've made dwarfs available because, honestly, I didn't think about it at the time. And, you know, considering the number of options, so there are Dragonborn options up the wazoo. There are Aasimar options. There are... Basically, I have story reasons for why there are certain species, and I do generally refer to it as species. The only time I'll refer to it as a sub-race is usually if it's like humans, for example, because the world is so vast and there are different biomes within the world. Obviously, people are going to, and cultures are going to develop differently in those areas. And obviously I haven't created every culture that is available yet in the world, because that is an essence in madness. I basically only create what people interact with. Because otherwise I would go crazy. I think, well, this is the thing. If you run with the concept that both dwarves and elves are technically fae, sentient goldfish is entirely possible. I think one of the players is considering playing a hairless cat-style tabaxi who is an awakened pet of one of the wizards from the previous campaign. Anything is possible in terms of the story. If it doesn't have it, like, and that's the thing. If it doesn't have a mechanical reason for why you're doing something, if it's just flavor text and it's your backstory, go for it. I don't see any problem with it. I want you to have creative stories. I want you to have the character that you're, you know, happy playing. But the key there is obviously flavor text, not mechanics, because vacation goldfish wizard. Yeah. Yeah. The one thing that you'll repeatedly hear me say, Zugent, is, yeah, I want a person, a character, not a gimmick. And, well, no, that's actually not inherently true. You can have a gimmick as long as that is not your character's whole personality. Like, there have been plenty of characters who have started out as gimmicks. The head god of the Pantheon currently is he's known as the Peace Father. He is a Turtle Tranquility Monk Wild Soul Barbarian. He's the god of balance. He started out as a gimmick, you know, that was based roughly on Master Oogway. We have, you know, I don't mind. Like, even Billy Bob, Bill Bobby, Cletus IV, he was started out as your atypical swamp person gimmick. You can start as a gimmick because that's not what makes the character a person. You know? The fact is, you want a character. It's more the fact I want you to have a character that you can build on. Yeah, exactly. There is nothing wrong with having fun in the campaign. And, you know, I myself as the DM, I enjoy putting those pop culture references in. I enjoy, you know, the crazy shenanigans that I would have never thought of. The fact is, the way that I run my campaigns is they have to be fun for everybody, not just the players, like me as the DM too. If I'm not having fun, why am I running this game? And you'll hear me say this repeatedly, and this is where I was going before. Is I want you to invest in your character. I want you to invest in the game, but at the end of the day, it is still a game. I've been very open to say that, yeah, like, you can discover and explore things about yourself in a D&D campaign, and I don't mind you doing that. But be aware that I am not a licensed therapist. So if you're coming in using my game as a form of therapy and you cannot disassociate yourself from your character, that you think that what I'm doing is personally attacking you, you're not going to last very long in my games. Just because I believe that as the DM, yes, I have to play the bad guys and the antagonists and the situations that create controversy and, you know, create those problems for your character. But the fact is, I'm not your enemy. I want you to succeed. I want your characters to succeed. I want you to win. Because as the DM, I can put you in the world in any situation that I want. Like, what's the point of absolutely destroying your characters, your players, repeatedly, like, on purpose? You know, and it is one of the biggest things that I've always hated about that concept of, you know, seeing players versus the DMs. The game can't run without the DM or the players. Both people in that situation are important. You know, I want you to succeed, but the fact is, I have to, you know, your actions as players in the game will have consequences, and so you can't get mad at the DM for just playing out those consequences. You know, the fact is, I don't want to absolutely annihilate your character, because, you know, if the fact is, as the DM, I have the power to do that, but why? Who wins in that situation if you completely crush your players beyond recognition? You crush all hope that they end up going, well, why am I even playing? If you ever feel like coming to a game, and again, this is something I'm very vocal about, if you ever rock up to a game, or, you know, it's before the game and you're like, oh, I really don't want to play, don't force yourself to be there. It's a game. It's not, you know, it shouldn't be about, you know, you shouldn't be forcing yourself to do something. Like, this is your free time. This is the things you do for fun in your free time. It shouldn't feel like a chore. And I will always say there is no such thing as a bad player, because I don't think that there is such thing as a bad player. I think there's such things as incompatible DMs, incompatible tables, incompatible players. But it just means that your particular playstyle isn't compatible with the table you're at. And that's okay. That doesn't make you a bad player, and it doesn't necessarily make the DM a bad DM. It just means that they weren't the DM for you. Yeah, exactly. I think I briefly touched on this on Saturday night, that when I turn around, one of the things that you probably noticed in the application was the consistency question. We run every week. This is why because we run every week, this is why I keep the games to a 3-hour time slot, because we play every week, we don't need to play 6 hours at a time and things like this. So, because that's just going to lead to burnout, let's be honest. And I feel like after about 3 hours, people start mentally clocking out as well. But consistency is important to me because of that, and also because we're streaming it, so it's going to be even more important. But at the same time, it's still a game. It's still a game, and I just require, even if it's like 1 minute before the game, if you are having a really crappy day or whatever and you just aren't feeling it, I do not expect you to force yourself to be there. As long as you just... And I understand sometimes like accidents happen and emergencies happen and you just cannot do this, but those situations are usually pretty few and rare between. Even if it's a minute before the game, I'd just like you to send me a message. I don't need to know all the details or anything about why you're not showing up or whatever, but just the courtesy of, oh, hey, I'm just really not feeling it tonight. I won't be there. That's all you need. And I will actively say that being tired or just mentally not in the right headspace is a good enough reason to not show up. No game, nothing you do in your spare time, nothing you do in your life, let's be honest, is ever worth your sanity. So I would very much prefer that you take the time off. Well, that's a little different. But for example, if just mentally you're not doing it, I am all for you taking a break. As long as you communicate with me. As I said, we're all adults, so communication kind of is the important rule here, And that being said, over my time learning to be a DM and things like this, I have also learned that sometimes I have learned over the last 6 years that I've needed to get better at understanding and communicating with my player and understanding what they're saying, that not everything that the player is saying is personal on my front either. I don't need to defend everything. Sometimes we're just going to agree to disagree, and that's okay. And I've had to learn to get better at that. Not explaining myself if I make a mistake, because the apology is what matters, not the reasons why I did a thing. And yeah, I have made mistakes as a DM, and I have always been very open about that with my players as well, because at the end of the day, I'm as much of a human as the rest of you. So I'm gonna make mistakes, and you know what? That also means that sometimes a session is just gonna be crap. Sometimes some of your sessions aren't your best work. It happens. The key point is everybody walks away from the table going, well, that was crap. And you move on. Because next week is another game. Next week is another chance to improve it and make it better. The fact is, at this point, I'm a 35-year-old who is married with kids. The people I play with are anywhere in their mid-20s, who, are working and things like this, or even older, and they also are married with kids and things like this. The fact is, and I don't particularly like confrontation either, but, one of the biggest things you learn is sometimes, even if it is hard to talk about, it is always better to be honest. Basically. And, there are going to be people who... I think one of the biggest things I had to learn just as a person, was you can't make everyone happy. You know, you can't make everyone happy. As long as you try to be the best person you can be, it's all anyone can ask of you. I don't have lots of rules of codes of, I don't have lots of rules of codes of conduct of how you should behave in my games, in my servers. It is a one overarching rule for everyone, which is essentially be a decent person. I don't care what your religious beliefs are. I don't care what your personal political beliefs are. I don't care what your stance is on gender politics, yada, yada, yada. My rule is one for all. Be respectful. Be a decent human being. Not everybody has to agree with you. You can agree to disagree respectfully. But you are not going to come into my games and make other people feel unwanted. Yeah. Don't be an ass, basically. Yeah, exactly, Zephyr. Don't be an ass. Because in this world, not everybody has to agree. And that's okay. Everybody's reasoning for doing the things they do are their own beliefs. They are allowed to have their own beliefs. The only thing that you should be doing as a person is, if your beliefs don't align with somebody else's, if you can't be okay with that, then you are the one that needs to walk away, especially in a group situation. The group shouldn't have to bow to your whims to make you comfortable personally. But because you are the only person who can decide what you're okay with dealing with. But as I said, that rule is very much dependent on you should also being, like, obviously that does come down to, that doesn't give carte blanche for anyone to bully you for your beliefs. And I will defend anyone in my games for, you know, if people are banding together and picking on somebody because of their beliefs, regardless of whichever court they're in. You don't do that in my games. I'm not okay with allowing that in my games. It doesn't matter if it's a religious opinion or a gender discussion or a sexuality discussion. Don't be an ass. That's pretty much it. Well, that and also microphone etiquette and remembering that, and I do adhere to real world social politics as well, in terms of if you wouldn't say it to somebody in real life, just because you're behind a computer, don't say it. I expect you to treat each other in my games as if you had met them in person. And if you wouldn't say it to them in real life, don't say it. Basically. Just because I think it is very evident that we are seeing this rise in a erosion of social etiquette because of obviously the online sphere. And so, yeah, I have that rule of if you wouldn't say it in person, don't say it to them. Evil one, yes, What is the You can't just leave that with an and then not say what you're going to follow through with there. You follow that rule. You do follow that rule. Incidentally, the rules for your games and my games do have a lot of similar crossover because obviously, you know, we've played together for a long time now. Yes, but you also believe in honesty. But that just means that you are more okay with saying exactly what you mean in person. Basically, yeah, the thought of how I run my games, I do tend to try and run it as much as possible as common sense. So, for example, I don't use encumbrance. I shouldn't have to tell you that you can't carry three horses on your back as a, human. And just, yeah, I do expect people to treat each other like human beings with feelings. And that goes for me as the DM too. As I said, the DM is not usually out to get you. And, the DM is a human just like you, who is essentially running and creating the game. And sometimes they are just going to drop the ball. And, that's happened to me too. There have been combats that I've done really badly. There are things that I've said or done that I shouldn't have said or done, The point is you learn and grow from those mistakes and try to get better. No, she uses bunny. Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, the bunny sharks. They were cute. They were a cute little homebrew monster I found that had pack tactics. The only thing in retrospect that I think I would have done differently is I would have made their bite attack do less damage. But the swarm and everything, yeah, no, I'd keep that. But yeah, no. In retrospect of actually having them in play, they were a cute little homebrew that I found, and I went, oh, it'd be cool, especially because the Tabaxi artificer of the party, yeah, he saw fishies, he followed the fishies, and yeah, I almost TPK'd the party on a joke encounter because of it, and I felt so bad. The Fey Corgis had an ability, basically, that they could give puppy dog eyes. The Fey Corgis weren't even that difficult. It's the fact that you guys are a fairly low wisdom party and all of you kept failing your wisdom saves to not give in to the puppy dog eyes. Yeah, you rolled terribly with the Fey Corgis. Like I said, I don't... They were evil. Well, as you know, they are back. They are... They exist still in the world now as a playable species. You will destroy them. Well, we already know that you don't manage to destroy them because they became a race of people. Yes. So they are a homebrewed race called the Corkwood. Essentially, if you wanted a dog race in D&D to play, this is your race that you can play. And it's not just corgis. On my document, I have also cited where I found all the base stats and things like this, so that if you want to use them in your own games, you can. But basically, if you want to play a dog race that looks like a Doberman, you can do so. You are certainly welcome to try, guys. If you can figure out how the time travel thing works. Dog destruction, corgi destruction is more important. Yeah, I will say that there was one particular group that helped me get better, because I used to be a DM who got really bent out of shape when my players weren't playing the story as the way that I had thought it would be played. The railroady DM. And the thing that broke me was I had a party in the world that we ended up calling the Chaos Crew. They did not have a plan for anything. Yes, no plans. Nothing worked. They didn't plan anything ever. And their whole MO was literally... So for example, they were in the desert. And they saw a guy on top of a sandhill. And he released a falcon. He had clearly been watching them. And he released a falcon. And they literally went, "Hey, that guy was watching us. Maybe he wrote something about us. I wonder what he said. Maybe we should go catch up with the falcon and see what he wrote about us." And this is what led them to going to a completely different part of the map, following this falcon. Exactly. I can't figure out what you're doing if you don't even know what you're doing. pretty much. See, I've always been a very big storytelling, like heavy DM. And yeah, learning to basically kind of go with the flow helped that. The Chaos Crew helped that a lot. I don't think I've ever had a beach episode. Which is sad, but I don't think we've ever had a beach episode. But we have had a bathhouse episode, which did lead to a character being choked out by a monkey. Hi, Greedo. Basically, one of the gods needed to talk to their chosen realm witch. To be able to do that, they kind of needed to be unconscious, but their constitution was too high. And so while everybody else got knocked out, they basically refused to be knocked out. And so the avatar of the god in question basically slowly choked him out. Made it take a turn for the worse? Oh no. That's not good. That will usually happen with a dragon. Depends on the dragon, let's be honest though. Because I have seen a dragon played that they did shock another god with electricity, and that's how breakdancing in the world was created. I was not the DM for that campaign. Look, I will be completely honest that I do run roleplay heavy campaigns. I have been I have gotten better at putting combat in place. But I will be 100% transparent that how much combat you get into in my games is seriously dependent on your playstyle as a group. For example, the Tuesday group, I would love to give them more combat. They keep talking themselves out of every combat situation. I.e. talking to each other and figuring out why they shouldn't do something, or convincing each other that that's a bad idea. How long you're in Corkwood is very much on you. Because it is a roleplay heavy campaign, I can say that the more you split the party and I have to divide my time role-playing with each of them, depends how long a day takes in game. I think the longest a day has gone in one game has been maybe 4 sessions. Yeah, pretty much. Hey, I love those sessions as a DM because very little planning has to go in on my behalf when that happens. Can't be mad. They're talking to each other. These might suit my purposes. Hey look, it's Barry the Big Shark. Yeah, it gives very much the Sam Riegel, what's my mother's name vibes. No. That would be funny if he doesn't. I will say that. Oh, it is that. Okay. Here's that one. Yeah, well, that's exactly it. The twins don't exactly have a lot to do with their parents. I must admit, I do also have to look up Arashi's family's stuff as well because Evil One created a lot of documents for them. Yeah. Well, that's exactly it. In this time frame, you haven't actually sent the letter yet. Pretty much. I mean, they can, but refer to aforementioned rule that if they don't remember it, then it didn't happen. I mean, thankfully, they've left a lot of really ambivalent clues in their own backstories that legitimately could have been them, but in the past. With 5 years, I don't think so. Well, there's no reason why your character would think they became a paladin. Who knows? Anything is possible. Literally, the only thing limiting you guys is your own imaginations about what you want to do. Well, yeah, that's the thing. How do you determine whether you can, how you're going to make your character do the things that you know that they did? Going to butterfly effect yourself, yeah, pretty much. Ooh, the grazing bull. Okay, so what kind of business is the grazing bull? that's the thing. You name a business, but what would you like the Grazing Bull to be? It can be everything from a brewery, it can be a tavern, it can be a brothel, it can be Grazing Bull. It could be something to do with an agriculture business. What would you like it to be? With a gorgon. Well, luckily for you, gorgons can very much be in the Feywild. Is the gorgon the bouncer? Yeah, no, it's part of the channel redemptions that I like my players to have input, no matter how that... Not even my players, just my followers to have input. So the gorgon's the bouncer. Just making notes. Awesome. Yeah. And this is the thing. I will usually find ways to make it work within my setting. This is why the Hells has hot pink. If I show you the Hells. This is why the Hells has hot pink mountains in it. Because I let them name it. Because I let them decide what colour we should do the mountains. And this is why we have a town which is called Save, with the mayor of Salvatore Progress. See, I really, really like it, and I've made some notes on how I could utilize it. So, ha ha ha. So I'm going to finish putting in at least these streets, and then I think that'll be us done for today. Boomeadow Builds will be back on Wednesday night for more of this town buildy goodness. And realistically, we should be able to get the town finished built next session. It's just lots of little bits and pieces like this that are just adding details. So I'll put these streets in here, and then I'll go in and I'll put in the buildings, and then I'll do things like shade things, put in grass, stirwork. Yes, stirwork. You should see the taverns. Every tavern has a different menu that is unique to that tavern. Which I have been accused many a time of making players hungry on purpose. And a lot of the taverns have such bar food too. Well, this is one of the things I like about it. If the players pass through, or, you know, and this is why I very much hold the opinion to my players that, sure, you can go into a town, you can blow the town up. I don't care. It's a town on paper. I can always resurrect the town. Yeah, Sabata only ever gets pocket bacon. And yeah, it's fantasy tavern food, but it's not like monstrous stuff. It's legitimately things like, now I'm trying to think, like crispy fried chicken wings with like, you know, I might throw a few fantasy flavor spices and things like that. Like, you know, crispy fried chicken wings with pepper berry aioli dipping sauce or whatever. Loaded potato skins with bacon, sour cream, and spring onions. You know, stuff that you would legitimately want to eat, but also the concept is if I was ever to run a in-person game for some of my longtime players and friends, we could like legit make the tavern food to eat. The bunny sharks were eaten, yes. I do try. And I also do a lot of research for regionality too. The Mushroom Man. Yeah, they came across a Myconid who won big on a gladiators event, and so came to the tavern and shouted everybody drinks and purchased shots for everyone, which was essentially this hallucinogenic, kind of like absinthe. And yeah, everyone in the party had an interesting time. Not only that, they then had to, the next day, they were asked to deal with the Mushroom Man, who was basically laying in the corner of the tavern, just like releasing spores everywhere. Yeah, no. Dragons have been, despite the draconic gods being a thing, the history of dragons within the world has been kind of tumultuous too, because of the nature of things that happened in the campaigns, and the world setting. So dragons have only been recognized as a species in the last, basically in the last 8,000 years. Before that, everybody just thought that they were some kind of lizard man race. Dragonborns. Yeah. That is true. Our paladin has terrible constitution, just by rolls at least. On paper, no, they're fine. But no, whenever it comes to a con roll, does terribly. That being said, I do know another paladin one time when I played, who naturally rolled ones constantly. It was like his curse. And then when he left the game because of life reasons, the curse passed on. Yeah, pretty much. It's Corkwood. What is on your brain tyrant dungeon? It says, very obviously, Corkwood. No, it was always called Corkwood. Like there's no joke there for once. What do you mean, how do I get my city layout so good? I at least use a randomly generated base maker. Which is giving me this overlay underneath, and basically I keep just changing the generator until I get something that vaguely looks like what I want. The generator is the medieval fantasy city generator by whatabout.itch.io. And yeah, so it's a generator that I actually use, and it's a brilliant generator. 100% recommend it for at least building these underneath bases. So yeah, there you go. That's what I use. I use a generator to at least get the base layout. And then it's just lots of... Yeah, I can send that to you. Give me a sec. There we go. No, I have no idea. Thank you for the follows, Agent. Thank you for the subscription. Jeez. Thank you so much. It is wonderful to have you here as part of the community. To be, I don't know if we'd actually, for the subscribers I do have, I don't know well, in general, my subscribers and my followers, I don't think we've ever really discussed what the community title is. Do we have a community title? I was originally thinking like ghosties and ghouls and stuff, because obviously Boomeadow, the whole concept is like a cosmic ghost. So yeah, I don't think we've actually discussed as a group like what the Runaways. Yeah, that seems appropriate. I don't think we've actually discussed like what the follower group is called. Oh, thank you. Yes, I need to go through all the applications with the players and basically just kind of create a short list. Because unfortunately, if you've checked it out, Agent, there have been a lot of fantastic applications. And it makes me feel so bad because I wish I could take everyone, but that game would be absolutely insane to try and run. The Boolings. The Boolings. Yeah, that's a possibility. I think I did, when I was building it, I think I did originally write somewhere. But I think it's something that should be decided on as the community, basically. What you guys are called, or what you'd like to be called, or give options for consideration. We're not calling... Tyrant, where is your head at today? Jeez. Somehow I don't know if that one's appropriate. Oh, jeez. Well, we do kind of have see, we do kind of have like, not that my children are big into gaming yet because they're not ridiculously old. They're like 8 and 6. But we do actually have like gamer tags for them. We've got Choc Mingo and Mad Dog. So, which Mad Dog is not the name that we gave him. That is the name that was given to him by his uncles. Which is appropriate. You know, we are very Australian in that regard of like Mad Dog is a very Australian kind of nickname to give someone on the footy field. Boomers, no, there's so many bad connotations with that. And I don't think any of my players are old enough to be considered boomers. I'm fairly certain most of my players are probably Gen Zers or millennials like myself. So unfortunately, I'm a millennial because obviously I was born at the end of the 80s. I think I'm going to have to finish up this because otherwise I'm going to be Let's have a look. Okay. So when we come in on Wednesday, we'll finish putting in these streets, I think. Because if I try and do that all now, I'm going to run out of time for everything I need to do today. However, thank you to everybody that showed up. Thank you to everybody that followed. Thank you to everybody that subscribed. You know, so it has been wonderful having you here for a chat. And, you know, I love the fact that when the chat becomes a dialogue as opposed to me just endlessly talking at you about stuff. And so, yeah, I will see you all. So tomorrow we are playing more Lost in Random. So if you like Xbox games or just want to hang out for a chat or whatever, that will be happening over here. If I get to bed at a decent time, it'll be 11 a.m. Otherwise, it may be a little later. Otherwise, I hope I see you all on Wednesday nights for the longer stream. And hopefully that is when we will finish Corkwood. Yes, Corkwood, Tyrant. Which hopefully we will get that done and it'll be great, and we'll work on another town after that. Otherwise, I hope you have a wonderful morning, afternoon, evening, or night wherever you are in the world. It has been great to have you here, and I cannot wait to see you next time. Have a wonderful day, stay hydrated, look after yourself, get sleep, and I'll see you all later. Bye.